Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our pilot panel discussion. I'd like to first of all thank everyone who made this happen. I would like to thank the Alina and the Ukrainian Social Club. I would like to thank the Ukrainian Creative Hub and all of our panelists who made it today. Moreover, I'd like to thank all the people who are out there watching and listening, and hopefully helping and participating going forward. So today's discussion is about a very sensitive topic, a very important topic about the damage war does to the children. We see on the news, hopefully not firsthand, but we see the damage to buildings, we see damage to people, but some of the damage is not seen. So we're here to talk about that. We're here to talk about this damage and what is being done and what can be done to help children and young people. First of all, to introduce myself very briefly, I'm moderating today. I'm a Eugene jurist. I am a trustee of the Ukrainian Social Club of Richmond and the treasurer of same. So please donate, please help out. In my day job, I work in a London fund called Simpera. So I probably have, or no, I definitely have the least to say and to contribute on the subject. I was born in what's now Ukraine. My parents took me out at a very young age in the 70s, and I've been in London for the past 20 years. So with this, having said this, I would turn this over to our panelists. Alina, perhaps if you can start and just intro yourself, and then we go around the table.
Thank you, Eugene, and thank you very much all for coming and participating today. My name is Alina Luts, and I'm the founder and director of Ukrainian Social Club, and we are based in both boroughs, Richmond and Hounslow. I'm Ukrainian, and I've been living in the UK for 21 years now with my family. And Ukrainian Social Club became my day job, became my only project, my passion. And I'm very glad that we have this opportunity today, be here in Ukrainian Creative Hub and have this opportunity for this specific panel. Thank you.
Yeah. Alina does a lot of work for both the young people, for the most needy people, for both the young and the old. We'll come back to that in the discussion. Yuliya, if you can take over.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Yuliya Kosko. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm from Zaporizhia originally. I've been in the UK for 21 years as well. I have an educational background, so all my life I worked as a teacher, educational consultant, and in March 2022, in the first weeks of the full-scale invasion, I set up a charity called Svitlo Education, and I am the founder and CEO of that charity now. And the mission of the charity is to educate future leaders of Ukraine, but also global citizens. And we do that via our online school called Svitlo School, where volunteers from around the world teach children of Ukraine who are in Ukraine or perhaps have relocated extracurricular subjects in English. So we make sure that they end up with very good English skills once they have been through our lessons, and then lots of different skills, soft skills, analytical thinking, etc., which are needed for whatever profession they decide to do. And I'm very honored. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm very honored to represent the voices of all the children that we support in Ukraine and around the world.
Right. So let's turn it over to Dennis.
Hello, colleagues. My name is Dennis Ugrin. I'm professor of child psychiatry at Queen Mary, University of London, and also consultant psychiatrist at East London Foundation Trust. Most of my clinical work and research is around severe mental illness in children, specifically self-harm and suicide. And since the beginning of the war in 2022, I've been focusing a lot more on the impact of military conflicts in general on children, and also on psychological and psychiatric consequences of these conflicts, and also on what could be done to alleviate some of the suffering caused by these conflicts.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dennis. This is the tone is getting more somber by the minute, and we have a very special guest with us today. We have Stefan Korshak, who is a war reporter for Kyiv Post. It's Ukraine's oldest English language daily, and Stefan, we're very fortunate to have him. Stefan has just recently authored a book on military history, and with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Hi, guys. It's really an honor to be here. It's an opportunity to. My job is I'm a reporter. I work in Ukraine. I sometimes go to the front lines. Most of the time don't. I talk to people. I look at the media. I try and get the word out about what's going on in Ukraine. What's going on with the children is something that you see all the time, everywhere, from every aspect. And the opportunity to get that information out to a larger audience is, well, I welcome it and I thank you for the opportunity. I'm an American. I've been in the journalism business for quite a long time. I've worked in a lot of the former Soviet Union. I've been based in Kyiv for more than 20 years. And again, thank you for having me.
Stefan, could you just say a couple of words about your book, please?
Yes. It's a hobby almost. I'm an enthusiast of military history. Sometimes my editors don't like all the detail that I put into my stories about obscure battles that happened hundreds of years ago. So in order to feed that problem, I, with another author, put together a book on the siege of Mariupol, which took place in 2022. From effectively the end of February through towards the end of May in 2022. It was an epic siege, a big battle. Children were caught in that battle as well, by the way. And the book's recently come out, both in Britain and the United States. So if you're interested in that kind of subject, please buy the book. But the subject here is kids, I think.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Just in terms of the order of the event is we have 10 pre-prepared questions which the panelists will discuss. After that, I will turn it over to the audience. Hopefully, we have some good questions from the audience that the panelists can field, and and after that we have a short coffee and cake, and that's it. So without further ado, let me launch into the questions. Stefan, this is, I think, were you kicked off, and before we go into the questions, can you set the stage for us, please? Can we talk about, for our English-speaking audience, because people see vignettes of this war in the press, but we don't get the high-level perspective. Can you compare this maybe to what this country has suffered in the Blitz, and we go from there?
It's not an exaggeration to say that what most of the major Ukrainian cities are undergoing is very comparable to the London Blitz from World War II, and in some ways worse, some ways not as bad, but by any means comparable. On a wider level, if I can get just one message out about the war itself, it is a very big, dangerous, bloody, conventional war of a scale that Europe hasn't seen since the Second World War. It has not stopped. Unfortunately, Ukrainian soldiers and civilians are dying daily because of the scale of the war and the amount of firepower that's been being thrown around. I would say that just like the London Blitz, the impact of that on both the adults, the parents, if you will, and the children is not simply the metal, not simply the violence. It's the psychological pressure, the interruption of daily routines, the way that life is not normal and how that affects everything And there's nobody in the entire country, I think, that is unaffected by the war. Pretty much all of us know people who have died, and even more have been wounded, and you do not have a normal life in a normal society with that. And so it's, for an English-speaking audience, the London Blitz, I think that's a pretty good analogy, by and large.
Okay. Alina, maybe if you can, we're just going to the questions, so maybe if you can take it from there. We talk about, seeing it here. You deal with a lot of the refugee children. Talk about what are the effects in this war. What are you seeing? What have you experienced? And what are you hearing in your network? Maybe we go that way.
To start probably with one story that I know that you asked me to be specific, and one story I would like to share with you from I think it was April 2022 when we just I was a volunteer in humanitarian hub called Prosperity in Twickenham. And the first wave of refugee families started coming to the UK on family visa scheme, and Ukrainians just they would bring their families to the hub just to give them a piece of Ukraine. At that moment, we didn't have Ukrainian Social Club set up yet. And I met this family of a mother and teenage daughter from Kyiv. I think the daughter was about 13, probably years old. She was very cute. She had blue hair. I vividly remember her. But she was very, very deeply depressed. That's what her mother said. At that time, she was unhappy, she was sad, she was really, really, crying every day. And she didn't have a school, so they didn't basically allocated her to a certain school because it was quite messy in the beginning. And she didn't have any friends. And she was blaming her mom for taking her out of Kharkiv and, bringing her to London. And she didn't want to be in London at that time, of course. And so I met this family, and the next day I met another family with also teenage daughter, similar situation. And she was missing her friends too. And I suggested, why don't they be introduced to each other? And the next day they came, both families, and the mothers, they sat together and they talked for hours, sharing their worries and family stories and issues. And these two girls, they sat together, I remember, down the stairs, and they were sharing something on their phones. They were talking, they were communicating, they were laughing. And her mom said to me after that, she said, thank you. And that was the first time since February 2022 when she saw her daughter actually laughing. And it probably was at the moment, very crucial moment for myself, when I realized that we have to create a space for children like that, for families like that, to get together, to meet each other, to get friends, to share their personal worries and stories, etc., etc. So I think I will stop myself just here, because I can go on and on about different stories. But that story clearly tells how children were affected, especially in the very, very beginning of the war, when everyone thought that the war will be finished soon, it will be over soon. And literally everyone who we met in the beginning of 2022 had plans to come back and return immediately after, the war would be finished. But it didn't happen, obviously.
Can we, Yulia, if you can just speak from your perspective, and then we let Dennis close us up on this topic.
Similar to Alina's, obviously, the effect on the children is very obvious in terms of socializing and losing their friends and having to adapt to different environments, particularly at quite crucial times of their lives when they're turning into teenagers, or they had their lives set up and they had to relocate, etc. And what we've noticed in terms of the effect on the children is that there's a huge impact of the war on them now, but unfortunately, I think the worst is still to come. We don't see how they will be affected as grown-ups, how they will overcome all of this, and when it will actually backfire. So what we are trying to do, and my initial response to the war was to try and distract them a little bit, not in a way that, make war less important, but try to bring some childhood back to them. And that's what we see the children in Ukraine crave for the most now. So part of our school, as well as academic, obviously support and the lessons and English learning, we have a very strong social platform, as much as it's possible online, where we have British-style house system, competitions, assemblies, drawing competitions. Then sometimes they meet up if they're from the same towns. We have partnered up with British international schools in the UK, and children come for 2-3 weeks to just take a break, to sleep through the night without sirens, to just enjoy life. And one of the boys' feedback that one of the director of the school shared with me was that, thank you so much for this experience. It was amazing. And I am 10 now, and I don't remember my life before the war. And to come to the UK was not just amazing opportunity as it would be for any child, but for me, it was also very special to just have 2 weeks without the war in my life. And how sad is that? As most of us are parents here, to think that a young person like that doesn't remember their life without the war, doesn't remember a night without being woken up and going to corridor or toilet or wherever a safe place is for them. So I think because of that, the effect will take years to show. And I think because of that, we really need to pay more attention as much as we can to the young people, young children, and try to support them now and keep on supporting them, because they are the people who will grow up and deal with all the mess.
Thank you. Dennis, if you can close us up and actually link us to the next question, because the next question is, what are the outcomes on children's mental health, physical health, learning ability, etc. So start here and take us to the next question.
Firstly, I want to support very strongly our other panelists' views, specifically that we need to be aware of the war still happening. Obviously, other events happen on television, on the news, and that war is, as Stefan was saying, and you were saying, is very much still happening, and thousands of children are affected, perhaps millions of children are affected in Ukraine and elsewhere too. And of course, one has to invest in children now and not wait until, as you were saying, until the end of the war. And we know that children in Ukraine are very badly affected by the war. So perhaps we could expand on this in the next question, but maybe just to start off by saying that we now have data from a western Ukrainian city called Ternopil, which is, colleagues will agree, is not the most affected of cities. But that shows that about 40% of children have clinically significant symptoms of PTSD.
Trauma, yeah.
And that is something that I did not expect before we did the survey. That's a huge number. So if you look at kids, say, in London who are from Ukraine, who arrived after 2022, that percentage will be maybe 5%, so it's significantly less than that. And so what one has to say is that And the reason why it's so incredibly prevalent, clinically significant symptoms of PTSD, is because, I think, as you started off by saying, because these kids are affected by the war every day.
Yeah.
So they have to run to shelters, they have to interrupt their education, their communication with their siblings and friends. And so there is no doubt that the best way to support our children's mental health is for that war to stop now. And I'm afraid the only way to stop the war is to inflict the kinds of losses on Russia that will make it stop. Otherwise, Russia will never stop.
Very clear.
Okay. That's tough, but that's life also. Yuliya, maybe can we bounce this back to you and talk? You talked about children being of children being afraid, of children having anxiety, of children. You mentioned waking up and going to the toilet. Maybe talk about what are you see among your clients, if you will, the children and young people. What are you see as specific outcomes? Dennis has mentioned PTSD. What are you seeing in terms of impact and learning ability? What are you seeing in terms of other specific impacts?
Greatest fear, I think, as well, of any parent is like a loss of interest in anything when the child is just like, okay, well, I'm just in survival mode or whatever. And obviously we don't want that, because any educational psychologist or you would know as a common sense that children, as they grow, there's a certain period of their lives that are important for certain developments. And they don't just pause when the war is there or opportunity is not there. They still go through these certain periods of development where certain things need to be happening in their life. And if that time is lost, then it's very hard to regain it later on. And then, of course, when, there's no interest in life because of what's happening, then your childhood and then adulthood has completely different turn. So what we try to do is engage them in anything, engage them in education, in learning language, engage them in life, in making friends. And the message that we send to children is that making mistakes is fine. You don't have to be super academic, just be active, be curious. And that's, I think, what is very important. And one thing that we have noticed with our older children when we set up student council, which is a concept not very well developed in Ukraine. I don't think they have it in Ukrainian schools. In the UK, obviously, it's quite common in schools. So we have this proactive student council members and prefects and all the terminology that is used here in British education. And we have realized that they are actually so keen and really want to help and be proactive themselves. So the children or the young people, teenagers, feel helpless as well. They want to help, to do something to stop the war, let's say, or have a positive effect on it somehow. And they're not given those opportunities because of their age, and quite often I think adults dismiss what they can bring back the children. So we have created this platform for them where we try to give them the responsibility, give them the opportunity to have their voices heard. Now we educate all the children who are 16 and above to teach English to the younger children, because in order to join our school run by native-speaking volunteers, you have to have certain level of English, which is obviously not the case for a lot of children in Ukraine. So we have created this hub where all the children run a English beginners club for younger children. And I think it's very important in terms of then bringing up future leaders and future people who are not indifferent to anything, because everybody has a role. Everybody has something to do with, it doesn't matter what your skills are. You can become a volunteer. You can talk about the war. You can repost, like messages about the war. And, regardless of your age, background, there is something you can do. And I think that's important to remember and try to bring into our children.
Okay. Alina, can you talk about what you're seeing specifically among the children, the young adults who you're working with, in terms of impact on learning in terms of physical health, etc.
I agree with Yuliya that the I'll probably stick to one story. We have a young lady. She came to the UK on her own. She was alone. She was lucky to be evacuated from Kyiv in the beginning of March 2022. She spent a couple of months in Poland, also almost on her own. She was 18 years old, and even when she came to London, she was lucky enough to find a very good family that hosted her. She was introduced to us. We sort of try to create a nice surroundings and introduce her to other Ukrainians her age and help her to find job, to find English language courses, because she didn't speak any English. And she shared years after that. She shared her personal story with me, and it turned out that she was sleeping for months after she was evacuated from Kharkiv, face down with her hands on her head, like protecting her head. And it really struck me, because obviously she was, in Poland for some period of time, being safe, being in different hotels and friends' houses. And even when she came to the UK, Richmond, sleeping in her nicely down room by her loving new family as hosts, they were very, very, they cared about her a lot. She was continuing to sleep like that for months. So clearly that story just showed, this little story showed, and she was 18 years old. She wasn't a little girl. Clearly shows how, she spent probably a week in Kharkiv. By that time could affect her probably till the end of her life. She's obviously better. She found a job. She speaks great English. She moved out from her host family, and she's a quite happy person now. But we don't know, as Yuliya was saying, it probably affects people, children especially, till the end of their lives, forever, unfortunately.
Stefan, if you have, I mean, from your perspective on the ground, if you have anything to add on that, that would be great.
I got one from the ground and one from far away. From far away, just the recent news, I'm sure that everybody's aware that the American government has expressed a bit of interest in Greenland. And some journalists, some of my colleagues, went to Greenland to ask the Greenlanders what they thought about it. And I saw a report recently, and I believe it was CNN, but I could be incorrect about that. And one of the consistent threads they were against it. They don't want to become Americans. But one of the consistent threads of the responses by the Greenlanders being interviewed about what do you think about this American initiative was, I can't sleep. I feel under stress. I haven't felt this bad in a long time. I don't know what's coming next. I don't know about the future. That is exactly what's happening in Ukraine, but multiplied many, many magnitudes more. I would say that I'm sure Denise will back me up on this. War is a life-changing event. A little bit of war changes your life. A lot of war changes your life. Pretty much everybody responds to a certain degree individually, but there are some sort of common consistencies. And Britain got through the war. There was an entire generation that survived it, and It's not as if being exposed to war ends a life, but it changes the way that a person looks at the world, and it changes the way that a person will look at the future. And the first step to supporting that seems to me it's just understanding it, not to be afraid of it, not to say, oh, I have no idea what's happening, because people go through stressful events all the time. One of the comparisons that a lot of soldiers make is that if you are near the strike of a artillery shell, in a lot of ways, it's similar to being either near a car accident or right next to a car accident in terms of the shock that you feel and the nervousness and the adrenaline goes on. Of course, one is not in a car accident, and then there's another one and another one and another one in the space of several minutes. But the response of the human to those kinds of stresses are common across a lot of people. And in that sense, I would say that the Ukrainians themselves, as people, and the children especially, they're not absolutely unique. They're human beings, and they're responding to stress. And the ways that they can be helped, it seems to me, is there are ways to do it. And the first step is understanding. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Maybe I snuck in the next question because it's a topic that's of particular interest to me. So I'm the moderator. I get to do that. We talked a lot about young people. We talked a lot about teenagers. Can we talk a little bit about children born in the war? I have two nieces in Odessa. One was 2 when the Russians invaded and Odessa was shelled daily. The other was born born a couple of years ago. For her, it's a part of the everyday life. The family moves between. The family's half German, half Ukrainian. The family moves a lot between the peace and comfort of a small town in Franconia and back to Odessa. I just can't fathom what goes on in the girls' minds. Maybe, Denis, if I can direct this to you, and then we go around the room.
A military conflict of any kind on children's well-being is relatively well known. So we know what to expect, and we know what the consequences may be, and we also know what to do, how to help children too, to some extent. Now, the kinds of difficulties that are specific to children, of course, start with learning. People on the panel, especially you, will know that kids who are anxious or depressed or have significant PTSD symptoms will not be able to concentrate as well. And that's something that we see all the time in Ukraine. And also what we used to see with new arrivals from Ukraine to the UK, I'm sure you'll agree with your experience. Now, fortunately, and I will go slightly against the general sort of grain of discussion here, the kids are exceptionally resilient. And what we see in many military conflicts, not just in Ukraine, is that the vast majority of kids will do well. And we see this already in Western Europe or in Europe in general, where kids actually function pretty well. There will be a minority of kids who will not, and they will need significant support. But the vast majority will improve, and which brings me back to the point that we have to stop the war. And then that will give our children the best chance of improving their mental health and learning and physical development too. Now, in terms of what could be done about this, then I agree again with your point that the investment needs to happen now. We shouldn't wait until the end of the war. Most of the interventions, educational and psychological, have been done with children who are already in a place of safety.
Yeah.
And that applies to all conflicts. So when we look at Syrian children, Sudanese children, Afghanistani children, or Ukrainian children, the vast majority of the interventions have been done with the children who are already in place of safety. Now, what happens to kids like you are referring to in your capacity as a moderator, kids who were born in Ukraine during the time of war, who are being affected by the war every day of their life, and whose learning and development is significantly impacted by the war. Interestingly, we do not know that. So there have not been high-quality studies that looked at either educational or psychological interventions for those children who are currently in a place that is affected by wars. And interestingly, that also provides an opportunity for Ukraine to lead the world globally in terms of finding out what works for kids. Because unfortunately, that war is not going to be the last war in the history of humanity, and there will be many, many, many other wars where many millions of kids will be affected. And so that knowledge that we are capable of generating, and started to generate already in Ukraine, could be applicable across the board and for many years to come. And that is something that I think, again, going back to your point about investment in kids during time of war, is something that could change millions of kids in future wars, and Ukraine could lead the world in this.
If I may
Please.
pick up from here, I completely agree with that. And I think particularly if we're talking about younger children, in Svitlo Education capacity, I don't deal with them because we start working with children from the age of 10. But as a mother of a young child, and having read a bit about it, I think what's something that we are missing out on as well is that young children, babies particularly, they take everything from their parents, right? They learn all the reactions, all the mimicking all the behavior, etc. And I think if there were some preposition for maybe neurodiversity later on, it would have, things like ADHD and everything else. It can start from not having enough attention from their parents when they're young. Their parents obviously, being stressed, being not the best parent they can be because of the war. And that is something that, is hard to neglect in terms of that then sets the child's life in a way, right? Because the babyhood and the early years, some psychologists argue that they're the most important years of a child's life. So having been born in danger and having been exposed to parents who are always in danger and don't give you as much love as they could, as much eye contact, as much attention, would then influence the child's development in the future. And as you said, that there isn't probably scientific research about it, but as human being, I think it's, you probably don't need the data to understand what the impact it will have on children.
Alina and Stefan, do you want to add to this?
I would just sign up to that. I guess I would repeat that the stressors are out there everywhere, and simply being alive in that kind of environment, it gives the impression when you say it that there are missiles whistling in constantly and that there are grenades exploding on the street constantly, and that is not the case. And for every kid who unfortunately has gone through combat, and that does happen, it's rare, there are thousands, tens of thousands, who on a day-to-day basis are under terrible, terrible stresses that we don't immediately associate with war. If your parents are afraid all the time, that's a stress. If one of the parents isn't afraid and the other one is not, which is really quite common because one will be more willing to take a risk about going to the basement to hide because the strike is coming in than another. That is a stress inside the family as well, and the child will pick up on that. And the fact that the child's parents, for instance, don't know exactly what to do is yet another stress. And it is really endless. And so the professionals like Dennis, they will, I think, tell you that there is no simple silver bullet recipe that fixes everything. There's not one thing that can be done. It is something that is just across the society, and it affects everybody. And since the children are part of the society, they are affected as well. And wherever there is a stress, it's a symptom, and then you can take steps that are known that can be address the symptoms. And really doing more than that is just unrealistic. And I would agree with Dennis very much that if you really want to solve the problem and fix it, you have to stop the war. And then you get into a political and military question about what works and what doesn't. But in general, wars normally are not stopped by politeness and nice discussions. It's violence, and it's usually blood and death, unfortunately. So that would be my feedback on that.
Let's actually just keeping an eye on the clock. Let's move on and go to the next question. Maybe start with Alina. Talk about one concrete activity, one concrete initiative that you're doing right now to help children, young people in your capacity deal with all these terrible things we just talked about. So kick us off, please.
We have several initiatives to support children in Ukrainian Social Club. Of course, it's our cultural department, which is, we run different classes for children starting from the age, from basically 2 years old till 16 years old. And the one that I want to talk about is Ukrainian Youth Theatre. So it started as a teenage support group. When we realized that we have a bunch of teenagers that, quite awkwardly, ended up being in the same area and in the same environment, and they needed a common purpose to get together to do something together and create something in the end of the project. So we established Ukrainian drama classes for teenagers and for kids. And that's the most probably successful, one of the most successful our projects, because youth theatre now is a project where we manage not only to get together 25 teenagers, different age from 13 years old till 16, but also give them an opportunity to learn new skills, to gain more confidence, to get off their phones. For those who have teenage kids, they know how difficult it is to
tell us how to do that.
Well, get them to come to Ukrainian Social Club on Fridays and Thursdays. So they off their phones for 2 hours, learning new lines, learning new dances, new steps, etc., etc. And in December 2025, they performed 4 times it's our not new play, but we replicated every year the play called The Night Before Christmas. You all know it probably by Google. And we have another performance coming in February. It's our second year where Orange Tree Theatre in Richmond takes our play in their repertoire. We're very proud of that. So please come. I invite you, come and watch the play 8th of February, 6 p.m. Orange Tree Theatre, Richmond. A bit of, advert here. Children not only getting, as I mentioned, new skills, new friends, they also find their first love there. So we have a couple of love stories happening there, and I'm very proud of what we actually created. They go together on holidays. We send them to Bristol this year to perform there, and they behave very, very nicely on the trip. And, you know, it's a wonderful opportunity for them to be in their Ukrainian friendly environment beside of their normal, you know, school. Of course they have the,
bit of
you know,
home,
a bit of home. And we usually, you know, we usually ask them to give a feedback, just to see how they feel about it. Maybe they have, you know, whatever, you know, share with us their thoughts and on how to, I don't know, maybe improve our classes or whatever. And every time they share their personal sort of feedback with us, they say it feels like home. And they miss their home very, very much. And they all from different cities. They're not from one region. They're all from different cities of Ukraine. And it really, really, you know, makes me smile every time I read these comments.
Yuliya, can we go to you and just please be specific, like one activity.
One activity, okay. So
I know everyone does a lot. Sorry.
yeah, that's fine. No, I think I can comment on the latest development that we had and that's going back to giving a bit of stability to the children in this very unstable period of their life. We have regular surveys where we also ask for feedback and try to adjust to their needs. And a year ago, in one of that survey, 17-year-olds answered to the question, of what are you afraid of in the future. Around 70% of the answers were not about the war or education, university, etc. The answers were that they are afraid to have to leave Svitlo School because Svitlo School was up to the age of 18. Of course, we were very touched, a bit scared of the responsibility, but them calling us their second family, we realized that we are so much more than providing education. It's part of their life now. So we have launched graduates of Svitlo School, 18 to 25-year-olds, and we're very proud to have partnered with German YMCA this summer in 2025, and they have hosted 10 of our 18-year-old girls. Boys were not allowed to leave the country back then, and they have come to the UK for 2 weeks, and we took them to Google office, LinkedIn office, Bloomberg, and different organizations where they had got this aspiration and kind of outlook on the world, no matter what their professions are. It was very interesting for them to see. We took them to 2 architecture companies which are hoping to get involved in rebuilding Ukraine. And now we carrying on online with certain lessons and engagement for them to kind of keep on growing up with us and get into the workforce and visit Ukrainian companies and organizations, get familiar with LinkedIn, networking, interview skills, etc. So not just leave them at 18, but then kind of see them into adulthood and set them up with good future, hopefully, as much as it's possible.
Dennis, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've stalked your background on LinkedIn and on the university page. There was a mention there of the work that you are doing with Ukraine and with Ukrainians about establishing a community mental health network. Can you take us to that a little bit?
So perhaps one intervention that is worth mentioning is called Teaching Recovery Techniques. In Ukraine, it's called Diti i Vina, Children in War. And what this is about is it's a brief group intervention for children and for adults, for their carers. And there are both specific and non-specific aspects of it. And the non-specific factors, as mentioned by other colleagues here, is about understanding that you are not alone, that there are other kids, especially teenagers, other parents who go through the same thing. And that's an incredibly powerful part of the program. Because many kids think that what happens to them is somehow never happened to anybody else.
Ever.
Ever. That's maybe part of the developmental stage as well of teenagers. But then they realized that everybody struggles with sleep and with concentration and with flashbacks and so on, and that's very powerful.
Yeah.
Now, there are also specific parts, of which I wanted to highlight 3 for the purposes of this talk. One is that what we know is very toxic for kids who are affected by wars is that they don't feel a sense of control over many symptoms that happen to them, like flashbacks. And giving these children an opportunity to develop control over these symptoms is, by a very long margin, the most important thing that we could do. And the way we do this is by allowing children, when they are ready, to talk to us about what happened to them. And not be afraid that somehow they go crazy or there's something wrong with them. They realize that this happens to most kids. And creating this narrative in their minds about what happened, and not be scared of this, but be in charge of what happened, is a super important part. The second thing that is very important for parents especially, and maybe also for host families who host our children in the UK and other countries, is the realization that what kids need more than anything else, especially displaced children, is routines and predictability. Now, that is something that especially fathers are, if they're around, often are very difficult to convince, because they like to come from work and begin to play suddenly with kids and play football, and that's, and then the child finds it difficult to fall asleep and whatever. So we always say to the father, look, you want to play with the child, of course you want to do this, but let's just think about the predictability and routine. For example, a very nice wind down technique for a father to do is to read a book, a story to the child. And then that is something that is just implemented as part of a predictability and routine. And maybe the third thing to say is that we know from recent research just published that, interestingly, just teaching relaxation techniques like breathing doesn't work. We were really quite surprised at that. In fact, some kids got worse in Poland, that is. But what seems to work in a brief intervention is teaching kids problem-solving techniques. And that is something that is really worth investing your time, I think, in by parents, by educators, by other people who work with kids, is not to give them ready solutions, but to teach them how to solve problems in general. You know, how you define what the problem is, think about possible solutions, think about pros and cons of each of these, and then making a plan on how to resolve that. And that seems to be a lot more promising. And we've got really good data from Poland, which we published with Harvard just recently, and we now want to replicate or not replicate this in Ukraine.
Interesting.
Okay. We're a little bit tight on time, so I am going to just roll forward a little bit, and I have 3 questions to finish this up. One, can we talk very quickly about using youth volunteers? Alina, maybe you start, and Yuliya, you've already mentioned this. Talk about how some of your clients become actually your partners, your colleagues, the young people.
Yes, I would like to get back to the youth theatre and our teenage support group. Children not only have an opportunity to come and learn and play and participate in different performances, etc., but we give them an opportunity to volunteer. So Ukrainian Social Club, as an organization, we care about raising awareness about the war, and constantly every single event we organize, we kind of carry that message to the audience. And our teenagers, they're very keen to help, and they volunteer at the Christmas fair, at the different concerts that we we organize. We're doing different festivals across the year, so we have 3 main events: International Independence, Ukrainian Independence Day in summer, and then we have, of course, we mark 24th of February. Every year it's going to be our 4th one this year, and they're very keen to help. And I find it very, very fascinating that they're not just takers. They also would like to bring back to the community. And they really are proud of being ambassadors, little ambassadors of Ukraine, and represent Ukraine in different other their school, their community, their neighborhoods, whatever. But we teach them how to be there, how to how to carry that message. And just a very, very quick, I know we're tight on time, very quick story. We have one of our teenagers, Katya. She organized a fundraising in her school, and it was purely her idea, and she did whatever activities she decided to do, and she raised some money. Can't remember, Maria might remember how much she raised, and she brought it back to the Ukrainian Social Club, proudly saying that I would like to donate this. I raised this money in my school. There was a fair, and it was purely her initiative. How wonderful is that?
That's great, right?
I would like to echo that as well. And I have mentioned already that it's very important to give teenagers that opportunity to also make a difference, make an impact. And at Svitlo School particularly, we have absolutely amazing teaching volunteers. The school is mainly, they are our anchor. It's run by them. Over 80 at the time, but they've been more over the last 4 years almost. And children learn by example. They see these amazing people showing up weekly. Some dedicate 10, 12 hours a week. We have some retired teachers who kind of almost made it their life. And when children see this sort of dedication and love and mentorship given by strangers from around the world. We had volunteers from New Zealand to Canada, America, South Africa. They want to do the same, and it's absolutely amazing. We have reading buddies now who are teenagers reading in English to younger children with Ukrainian translation and Ukrainian explanation, something that our English-speaking volunteers cannot do. And when I say that our mission is to bring up future leaders, I don't mean just the future president, which we are obviously hoping for, but leaders of the community, of their street, somebody who would, take initiative to tidy up the street, to plant some trees, to become a new teacher, head teacher of a local school, etc. And this is something that the best chance of actually bringing people up like that would be starting early. And I think it's very important to give them that platform and good example of becoming those people.
Okay. I'll lump the last 2 questions in one, and maybe start with Stefan. Everybody has talked about raising awareness. It's very important that our friends, our peers, our governments, our businesses become more aware of this problem. What can be done? Maybe what are you specifically doing, or what is your organization specifically doing to raise awareness? Can we get Kyiv Post to do a feature on this?
Yeah, easy. That's Kyiv. That's exactly why we exist. I'll try and keep it very short. We are an English language newspaper based in Kyiv, and we are one of the organizations that's trying to fight against the flow of bad information that's coming out of Russia. we do what we can. Don't have unlimited resources, and I wouldn't say we badly need help, but help is very much appreciated. And to take the other side of that, anybody talking to anybody else about Ukraine and passing on the truth is already a step in the right direction. Nobody's without agency here. If you sit in a cafe and tell somebody who isn't aware, that's already something. Perhaps not the best example, but one that I know, is that when the war started, I started a blog simply because I knew lots of people who were curious about Ukraine, and I knew that the news coming out simply didn't have the detail and the granularity and that sort of thing that they might like, and that continues to this day. The feedback is very positive. It hasn't changed everything. The Russian propaganda is still out there. And so what can people do? Anything that they think that they can do that might have an effect. And it really depends on who you are and where your backgrounds are. If Yuliya is giving kids the ability to speak English in this British country, that is fantastic. That's great. And that is a piece of it. It occurred to me that if you're talking about, okay, how can I help? Well, this is, to my mind, a wealthy country with a very advanced economy, and it needs service workers. And these young Ukrainian people, many of them, they have excellent work ethics. If you're a businessman looking at this, you're a small businessman looking for somebody to work in your cafe or your shop or whatever, maybe you want to try and get in touch with some of the people sitting at this table, not me, some of the experts, and say, maybe is there a way that I can put Ukrainians to work, young Ukrainians to work? And I can tell you, again, this is anecdotal, this is not scientific, that where I have seen young Ukrainians go to work in Britain, they flower, they blossom, and it's the cash in the pocket, it's the having a positive step in one's life, it's being part of the society as opposed to being somebody who's helped by the society. And so that's just one idea from one person, and I would end this with, there is no limit to the number of ideas that could be out there. So do something. That would be my message.
Okay, do something is good. Dennis, can you pick up on that, on the do something?
I mean, I really wanted to echo Yuliya and Alina's points in the sense that you were talking about young ambassadors of Ukraine and raising awareness that way. I think you were talking more about helping kids develop leadership skills and becoming future leaders of the community. And you were talking about how wonderful the work ethics is. And all of that stuff really makes me think about three things. One is there's plenty of research to say that giving is a lot better for your mental health than receiving.
Yeah, for sure.
And so what all of us are doing, I think, in different ways, is teaching children to give to the society and to support other people and to relieve suffering in people around them. And that's incredibly important. The second thing to say is that for kids to thrive, they essentially need not phones, but they need nature, sport, and art. I think, give or take, more or less, broadly speaking. But not just these three things, but also done together with other children. That's very important to be part of a group. Mm-hmm. And also contributing in a meaningful way to the society. And so what especially, I think all of you may have seen in the beginning of the war was kids, especially teenagers, maybe not so much little kids, who were terribly anxious and depressed, didn't know what to do. And of course, the best thing to both improve awareness, but also to help themselves, is to get together and do something meaningful, something productive. It could be anything. It could be the theater, it could be this helping with the school, it could be working, it could be helping the army or people in Ukraine. But that is such a powerful tool to be part of a group and do something together. And of course, the impact of that is significantly more than if you take the same number of individual kids and do something, if you do it together. Maybe one thing to highlight in terms of raising all of this awareness and also improving the well-being of kids. We have Ukrainian scouts in Britain called Plus Tournée, which is basically art, nature and sport with volunteering. And that is something that I think has been shown for many, many decades to work really well, where kids then get the chance to lead other kids and then learn a bit of leadership skills and also some of the other tools. So I would really support the development of Plus in the UK and other countries as well. And maybe one more thing to mention very briefly is that what I think is very special about Ukraine and the Ukrainian society now is the incredible number of volunteers at all levels, starting from very small kids all the way to retired people. And this sort of horizontal links that they make are extraordinary. I don't think I've come across that in any other war-affected country to the same extent. That is something that I think all of us should really cherish and develop more. For whatever reason, I think not everybody has a lot of faith in the government of Ukraine, although perhaps more so now than, I mean, you would have seen this over the years than ever before. But what people really, I think, have a lot of trust in these horizontal links and knowing soldiers that fight in the front line and helping that particular unit or that particular soldier, knowing, these badly affected people in hospitals and helping them. And I think that's something that, again, is fairly unique and something that could be, in fact, studied and implemented in other conflicts too, how important it is to develop that network and how good it is for mental health of kids and adults too.
I just want to quickly, if I may,
Absolutely.
just echo what Dennis just said. We have a dance group, dance ensemble, Stefania Junior, and I'm their choreographer and director. And every time we basically participate in different concerts and festivals, and every time that we dancing somewhere like Toloka is a fundraising festival that happens every 3 months, organized by Support Ukraine, and all of the procedures, all of the funds are going to support Ukrainian army. And every time we perform there, I tell the children that they're from age 6 to 11, and they know that they're not just dancing, just performing, Ukrainian traditional folk dance, just to support, just to share their cultural skills and, just to have some fun as a dance group. But also, they know that it's very important, and it seems like it's very, very important for them to be able to donate basically their time, their skills to support Ukrainian army. And they're very, very happy every time we do that in the end. And I sort of, congratulate them on that. They seem very, very proud and happy that they also did something for Ukrainian army.
You want to finish this up and then we turn this over to the audience?
Obviously, agree with the colleagues here that it is very important. And as I mentioned before, I think everybody in Ukraine and abroad as well, particularly when the war started, we were first very angry, couldn't believe what was happening. We're waiting for it to end any day. And then everybody wanted to stop that feeling of helplessness. Everybody wanted to do something. And I think, you could donate money, which is great. You could speak about it, which is great as well. But actually doing something either physically with your hands or dance or drama or by volunteering is very important feel-good factor that you're actually not just an indifferent person and an observer, and you're actually in some way helping for this war to be ended soon. And that's what our volunteers do. And I'm ever so grateful to everybody who actually puts their time and effort and then probably gets sucked into it, that they, put more time than they planned before. And that's what we all have to do, and then bring it in our children as well.
Great. So I think we're finished with the set agenda. We'll have a closing word, but we have about 20 minutes. Do we have questions from the audience? Please. I think the microphone is here, so if I may ask you to come up. Just.
Hi, my name's Steve Leliv. I'm from Doncaster, South Yorkshire. I have two questions, one for the whole panel and one for Dennis, because he's the expert. So the question for the panel is, I have a truck, 35-ton truck. I'm loading it up with 4x4s. I'm putting on there different things like EcoFlow systems, medical supplies. The truck is nearly full, and somebody says to me, we need to put some toys on there for the kids. And other people say, no, we've got no room. The truck costs us £5,000. We need to put some more medical supplies. So my question to you, first of all, is give me one reason why we should put children's toys on there instead of medical supplies for the soldiers. The second question, this one's for Dennis. Excuse me. The children that have been kidnapped by the Russians, when we get them back, have you got any idea how long it takes to deprogram them? And that's my questions.
Okay. Can we start? First of all, thank you. Second, can we start with the light part? I mean, the second one is very heavy. So
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer about the toys being, put in a truck. It's very,
Yeah, I would, if I can jump in.
Yes,
please. The Ukrainians have toys. There are toys in the stores. So it's just the same toys as that come, I guess, from China or whatever to Britain. You're not necessarily giving them something that they cannot get at all. Now, there's access, there's money, that kind of thing. But in general, probably most Ukrainians would say, we're being bombarded. And we need to fix windows, we need to repair buildings, we need to deal with the actual physical impact of war. And if we have to choose, we'll find some toys for our kids. But if we don't have the construction materials, that's harder to find. So I think, it just generically, the better answer is cram that truck full of what fixes things first. And the Ukrainians, they'll take care of their kids that way if you have to make the choice. That being said, if you have a specific group of kids
that need toys,
that or even have toys but are expecting toys from somewhere else, and they know that those toys are coming to them, that's a huge gift. And that's a huge help because they know that they are not alone, they know that they are supported, and they know that their family has people backing them. So, like she said, there's no really wrong answer here.
Okay.
But, you from the ground, the guys on the ground, they'll tell you construction materials.
Okay. Without being cynical, people have said that toys are good because they make good photographs of kids for fundraising as well, amongst other things. Okay, all right.
Just a practical advice to save on toys. You could do letters to children, pictures to children, to show solidarity, to show that people think of them. And yes, medical equipment are definitely more important to save their fathers' lives and to, it's not the object. One thing that the war has showed us that objects don't matter. You can lose them, you can find them, it's lives and attention and their parents, the children really need, not objects.
Okay.
On the second question, literally last night we had a discussion with one of the foremost experts in the field and another expert who sits in the audience, Anna Tarasenko, in parenting. Now, it's a huge problem, as you can imagine. There are several reasons why it's so unique. One is that we don't have any examples of this kind in any recent wars. I specifically checked in the Balkans and other conflicts. That never happened there. I think the example that's most recent in time is Nazi Germany kidnapping Aryan-looking children from neighboring countries. And what happened to these kids is not documented in any research articles as far as we can know. So we are truly in an uncharted territory, but very, very important one. The second thing to say is that a lot of experts are thinking about this problem. We don't have very good solutions just yet. But there are a few things that we know for certain. One is that we cannot do the same thing that Russians did to these kids. So brainwashing, getting them to, whether they like it or not, speak the language, listen to the music, pledge allegiance to the flag and to the anthem. That is not going to work. The second thing that we know, I think, relatively safely, is that confrontation and punishment of these children will make things worse. So whatever we do, it has to be done in the validation, acceptance, and love to these kids. And the third thing, which is, I think, quite interesting, we literally had a long discussion last night about this, is that when we look at other examples of kids who'd been maltreated, radicalized, or some other horrible things that happened to them, what we think is likely to be helpful is for parents and for educators as well who interact with these children, is to develop what is called cognitive flexibility. So the ability to look at any particular phenomenon from different perspectives, and not say that this is the right way or this is the wrong way, but just to allow these children to become flexible in their thinking about the world. And if that is done with the right sort of warmth and love, then we think that probably gives us the best chance. But it's a huge area, and I think a lot of very, very interesting learning will come from this conflict.
Okay, thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you. Be careful. Hello, my name's Robbie. I'm a member of Rotary, and I'm aged 87, so you probably wonder why I go there. But I'm passionate about education of children, and I've been there 3 times, and I've just returned from Zaporizhzhia, Kyiv, and Lviv. What I notice is that the UK press is not really reflecting what is going on there regarding the education of the children and the effect on the children. There are issues which we don't see, that almost every school has bottled water. It's not having tap water from the mains. There's PTSD. There's lots of orphan children and displaced children around. And my question is, how do we get the UK press to really reflect what is really going on there, rather than just tell us there's been another drone attack on Kyiv or somewhere? That's my question. Thank you.
Well, the media expert doesn't have any expert answer. You ask, you click on where the information is at, you write letters to BBC if that's the outlet where you want the information, and you search for ways to get the information that are beyond the standard mainstream. You can talk to, you can learn Ukrainian or use an auto-translator, and you can get all the information that you want, because it's out there. Getting it into the British mainstream is a question of competition, because as compelling as that story is, as a news story, Ukrainian children are under terrible pressure within education because of, and then you have a laundry list. That has to compete with parking in this neighborhood, with how much the right might make progress in the next elections. There's a limited amount of space that the mainstream media has to put out information about everything. And what you are talking about is a relatively narrow subject from the greater British point of view. So there's no easy solution. But the information is out there. Find it and share it. That's really all that any individual can do. People like us, in Ukraine will try, but it'll depend on you when it comes to Britain.
Okay. I think we have another question.
Hello, my name is Anastasia. I'm a volunteer of Ukrainian Social Club, but not only that. Thank you very much for organizing this discussion. And my question is actually about the issues which were not touched here. You've shared a lot about success stories and about nice things everybody's doing to support Ukrainian children, both within the UK and Ukraine. But I would not love this situation to be sugar-coated, because there are lots of actually children, teenagers, young adults who are not involved into the activities, and they actually fall out of those nice things, nice initiatives you do. So in my circle, not very big one, about 15 families maybe, I communicate on the daily basis. There are 3 cases of young girls thinking and sharing their thoughts and attempts of self-harm and suicide. That's a lot. That's really a lot. And I have 2 children. One of them is a teenager, and his experience of attending the Ukrainian school is also the experience of knowing that, for example, fighting, aggressiveness towards each other, and, for example, of teenagers registering on OnlyFans platform to share their nudes for money. And my question actually is both to those people involved in the activities. How do you see, is it possible to reach those children who are now at the moment in less favorable situations, so that maybe their parents cannot care that much of them, or they have some kind of pattern of meeting the, of challenging the reality? And another question is to Denis about control. The thing is that Ukrainians cannot control things in Ukraine because of war actions. They do not influence when the drone attack or air raid alert starts. But also in the UK, we do not control how much we can stay here. And actually, teenagers, they cannot separate successfully. They cannot become completely independent because they do not see their perspective, how long they will stay. Will they stay here or will they have to move? So what can be done in terms of getting people some control over their lives, and what can be done with those who are not involved at the moment? Thank you.
Okay, so we have really 2 questions. We have outreach and we have control. So who wants to start?
I could probably start with the outreach, if no one minds. And we're now in our 4th year of running as a charity, and in a more kind of stable position to think of how else can we approach children who are not just interested in us, but actually don't know that they need us, so to say. And it is very hard. It's something on our minds, and we are trying to reach out to schools and to different establishments in Ukraine. And again, it's very hard to do without, especially when some doors are closed to you, not just by those children, but by the organizations. So partnerships, partnering up with as many organizations and companies as possible. And sometimes it is a matter of, going back to the toy story, but a little carrot dangling at the front for the children of, okay, well, join a course of 6 weeks and maybe you'll get a power bank or something that we don't use it but this is we don't use that yet, but this is something that we see that might be a way of maybe starting to progress and reaching out to those children. So what we have tried in Ukraine is we are partnering up with schools whose administrations are exhausted as they are. Of course, they don't want to hear about another company or charity trying to impose something on them. So we are trying to give something and get them interested that way. So we've been collecting English books in the UK. We sent over 3,500 books, I think, last year. And we have built in Kharkiv bookshelf in there, which looks like British telephone box, which is very appealing and pretty. And then you open the door in the magical Harry Potter style, and there are English books there. So we have established them in the bomb shelters of Ukrainian schools with our stickers, with informations, QR code, etc. And this is a gift that the school gets, and children read those books, hopefully, and we try to get the schools involved in setting up their classes and trying hybrid education. It's a very, very important question, and I think there isn't just one answer for any organization. You have to try, you have to keep on knocking on doors, and you have to sometimes use cunning, so to say, methods, but there's a huge number of children that need help, and they will not come and ask for it themselves.
Yeah, I agree, Yuliya, absolutely agree with you on that. That children, sometimes we have cases that the parents, they bring their child to the club, and they try to sign up them for a class, but the children simply don't want to do that. And there's only we are also a small organization, and we offer a huge range of different activities, and that's only that we can offer at the moment. Of course, we can think about additional initiative or another class or another whatever activity for children, but it needs it requires time, additional financial supports, and we're short of staff. But in some cases, I just can recall that sometimes children come, they refuse to go to participate, and then they come back at some point. Maybe they reconsider, maybe they, sleep on it, maybe it's, it comes from the family. Definitely not to push the children. I would say, it's my personal experience, not pushing the children to you have to participate because you're Ukrainian, you have to go to Ukrainian school, or because you're Ukrainian, you have to learn, how to sing Christmas carols or something.
Alina, how do you get the info out? Outreach. Outreach is hard. We know that because our organization is 3.5 years old, and every time that we organize a big festival, for example, like Independence Day Festival in Richmond, in front of the mayor's office, with 1,500 participants. It's a free event with the 6 hours of live music and, market and everything. We have families that are coming up to us saying, oh my God, there's Ukrainian organization in this area. We've been living here for ages. We never heard of you. Honestly, I don't know how to do it better. If you know, please share your experience with me, because the only probably thing is left to go door to door, knocking and telling them about the club.
I can share a funny story in terms of bloggers. Bloggers worked for us, bloggers and celebrities. So we had a stream on Instagram with Oля Polyakova, the singer, and then in the next week we had more than 1,000 children trying. Sure. Not all stayed, not all signed up, but yeah, that's maybe how to get into the press as well. Use celebrity power a little bit.
So partnerships and figures that get the kids' attention.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily kind of serious figures that usually talk about the war, and it's just normal people. Or,
be careful about serious.
Well, I mean, not advocates of education or not advocates of something. It's people who other people just listen to or follow.
Follow. Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Probably.
Okay. Well, and now
use more celebrities.
Now
Anyone
we have the second part.
Look, It's a very good question and a difficult one, but there are a few things to say about this. So the first thing to do when there are circumstances of uncertainty, like you rightly say, is not to lie to children. It's very tempting to say everything's going to be fine, we'll stay or we'll go, or whatever. It's so important to be honest with kids. Yeah. And it's not always easy. I've dealt with many families who lied to children in the beginning of the war. For example, that their mother was alive when she died, or other things, that they will be going back and so on. And that, in the short term, it may be easier, but in the long term, it creates massive problems. So the first thing to do is to be honest within the developmental stage of the child. Obviously, not to overburden the child with detail or things that they cannot control, but to be truthful with them. And then the second thing to say is that you've highlighted kids who think about suicide and self-harm, and I think you link it with a sense of control, if I understood your question right.
Just that there is such a problem, yes, and it is here. It's not even in Ukraine. Yes.
No,
it's here,
everywhere.
And access to NHS services is pretty limited.
It's very bad indeed, yeah. So look, so kids' mental health is bad and it's getting worse everywhere, not just in the UK, but in most developed countries. In fact, suicide is now the second leading cause of death in kids, and soon will be the number one cause of death. Because accidents, especially road traffic accidents, are becoming less common. And so we will be faced with the reality that kids will die as the number one cause of suicide. And that has to be acknowledged as a massive public health challenge. Now, what I think you also highlight is the link, which is really interesting, between the sense of control that children develop over time. Obviously, from a very young child to an older teenager, the amount of control that you have over your life increases, typically. But what I think you also link it with, rightly, is with the sense of loneliness, which many kids experience. And if there is one protective factor for mental difficulties in general that we know of, it is social support. It is being part of a group, being accepted and understood by this group. So you're right that access to mental health services in the UK is appalling and it's probably getting worse, like it is in many other Western countries. That kids' mental health is getting worse. We know that especially older girls are struggling with emotional disorders, with self-harm and suicide. We know that for whatever reasons in the society, we have loads of risk factors for poor mental health, of which perhaps screens may be one of them, but there are many, many others as well. And if there is one antidote to that we know from a lot of research works, it is connecting kids with other kids as part of a group with a purpose. And in some ways, most of what we've been discussing today is precisely that. How to ensure that the child is not lonely, is not alone, is not lied to, is part of a group and does something with a purpose.
Thank you very much. So we're getting close to the end. I just like to go around the room. If there is one thought, not a long excursion, but one thought that you want to leave us with, please share. Please let us know. Yuliya, we start with you and just go around the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I think my main message would be invest into children now. And by investing, I mean time, awareness, education. No matter what age they are, they need to be heard and their problems to be addressed. And they are the next generation who will be, leading Ukraine, and not just Ukraine, the Europe, the world will be obviously affected by the outcome of this war. So that's what we do, and please join us on this mission.
Dennis?
I would say that if there is one thing that we could do to improve the mental health of Ukrainian children, it is to stop the war. I don't think that most Western politicians understand just how quite a global emergency we are facing at the moment. That Russia is ruled by a person who will not stop. He needs to be stopped. And that has to be the utmost priority for anybody who has any control over policies of Western countries. It surprises me no end that people talk about parking problems and other trivial things. When we are faced with a global emergency, with a person who wants to occupy Ukraine, who will not stop at that, and who will go as far as he can until he is stopped. And that has to be the number one thing that British politicians have to wake up with, and the last thing that they think about before they before they fall asleep. And if there is one thing that we should all do, is to raise awareness that the war has to be stopped as soon as possible, and that is the best way, by a very long margin, to improve the mental health of our children.
Alina?
Yes, I of course I agree about, with you, Dennis, about this, massive Europe emergency and world emergency, if we see it like that. And of course that lands on politicians to deal with. All we can do is just to continue what we've been doing, raising awareness about the war, raising awareness about how this war affects children, elderly people, infrastructure, etc., etc., etc. It's literally what we're doing now, and every person can do, as Stefan said earlier, whatever they can. If you can donate. If you can teach children, how to become an ambassador or future leader of your country, do so. If you can repost some, important information, do so. That's all I can say probably at this point.
And a closing word.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll repeat myself, I guess, a bit. Again, I think that Dennis has laid it out very clearly. If you are talking about helping children and you are talking about a war, then the best, simplest, most direct way, not simplest, the most direct way to solve that problem is to get the war stopped. Given the participants involved, that is going to mean violence and more war. But there's this is not a theoretical situation. This is a real, full-scale European war that people have not seen for generations, and it is going on right now. It is not. It is off the major news in a lot of places. There is a city called Kherson. If you go drive a car down the main street of Kherson with a child in your car, you have a pretty fair chance of a Russian drone coming to try and blow up that car, simply because it's a car. And there are thousands of children trying to live in that city. In the city of Kyiv, the center of technology, one of the aerospace centers of all of Europe, really, maybe even of the world, children, in order to study normally, are now going to school in underground schools that were built since the war began. This is not theoretical. This is the life that these children are living. Something else that you're talking about, PTSD, is that many of the people, many of the children, they aren't thinking in terms of, well, there's been 4 years of war. They come from the east of the country, where there has been war for 11 years. And they have been, I know people who have been displaced 3 times. They got chased out of Donbass because by the first invasion, then they moved somewhere else and the Russians hit that place, and then they moved somewhere else and the Russians hit that place again. Now, Russians weren't necessarily targeting them. That particular family was unlucky, but that is happening right now. To say that it is something that can be easily written off and, okay, well, let's move on to the next sports course. Okay, everybody's got a life, and you can't think war all the time, but thinking of it as a small problem that can be fixed in a couple of days is just, that's not serious, that's not mature, that's not adult, and it's the adult's job to think about the children, I would say. And the other side of that is what I've also already said, is that the scale of this conflict is so big and the level of suffering is so large and the ways that people are suffering are so extensive that there is nothing that anybody can do. Not in this room, not in this city, nowhere. No one person can fix it. And so if you're asking yourself, what should I do? Whatever you can. Because you can't fix it, not by yourself. And you don't have the solution, not by yourself. And none of us together have the full solution. But doing nothing is, to my mind, well, probably that's not something that I would recommend. And that's not something that the people that I know try to do. So if the final message is, please help if you can, that would be my final message. And thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stefan. We're out of time. I thank all the panelists. I mean, we have a lot of brain power, a lot of hard work, a lot of knowledge here. I don't want to use the word firepower, but we do that. And please continue the good work that you've been doing. And thanks to to Alina and Ukrainian Social Club for organizing this. Thanks to the Creative Hub for making the technical part possible, for helping us with this. You will see this on YouTube. You will see this on the websites of the respective charity organizations. And I really hope here I put my treasure of the social club hat on. I really hope that some of our viewers, listeners, will get involved as donors, as partners, as volunteers. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a happy Sunday.